Okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to our live broadcast. I'm told that the sound is too quiet, so hopefully that's improved. I think it should be a little bit louder now. I think it's fair to say it's a universal characteristic of beings that we seek out what is valuable. What we work for, what we strive for, what we plan for, what we seek out in all aspects of our life is what is valuable. We come to meditate because we think that there's something valuable to be gained from meditation. We have a job, employment, we work in the world for what is valuable. And we seek out many different kinds of things that are valuable. Different people see different things as valuable. Of course, it goes without saying that some things are not valuable. Some people seek out things that are not valuable, thinking they're valuable. The things that we generally think of as valuable, we recognize in Buddhism, in the world, the things that we think of as valuable: gain, status, praise, pleasure. These are the things we see as valuable in the world that we seek out. We work hard. We go to school. We get a job for our gain. We wish to gain money, possessions. This we get in the world, this we seek out, and this we strive for, and this we obtain, thinking or feeling or understanding that this is valuable. We seek out status, wanting to be well known or esteemed, right? Looking for a promotion, looking for some sort of rank or status. In society, to not be a nobody. This is valuable. It's valuable to be powerful, well known, high ranked in society. We seek out praise. We'll do anything we can to get people's good opinion. We work, and then we wait and we watch. Do people like me? What are people saying about me? We think it's valuable to have people's good opinion. It's valuable to be praised, to have people like you, to have people esteem you. People feel you to be valuable. We all want to be valuable ourselves. And of course happiness, pleasure. Much of what we do is simply to seek out pleasure. We have so many entertainment sources designed just for this purpose. And we have pleasurable sights and sounds and smells and tastes and feelings and thoughts. We seek out, we strive for, we work towards, we work to maintain and cultivate. We cling to, we hold on to as valuable. What would life be, right, without the pleasures? Without pleasure, what would life be? It would be meaningless, worthless. This is how we feel about pleasure. So putting aside the question of whether these things are actually valuable, even if we accept for the moment that these are valuable, it's hard to say really, because what would it mean to say that they are valuable? I think most people would say, well, I value them and therefore they're valuable. I suppose that's a good enough reason. If you see something as valuable, it's hard really to, without going deeper into Buddhism, which we will, but on the surface it's hard to argue. If you say it's valuable, it's valuable. The point is, it doesn't mean anything to say it's valuable. Because then we have to ask, what is it valuable for? What is it good for? And this is where we start to run into a problem. Because as much as you might say that gain is valuable, gain is not something that you can control. Gain is not something that you're in charge of. You can work really hard and maybe you'll become rich, but maybe you'll stay poor. The point is that gain is paired with loss. There's much in our life, many times in our life, or much of our life is filled with gain, getting what we want, getting what is valuable, getting what we esteem. Money, possessions, friends. But likewise, much of our life is filled with loss. And as much as we cultivate gain, we're always going to be disappointed and displeased by loss. Truth is, they go together. And if you're attached to gain, if you're attached to your possessions, there's a problem there. It makes you susceptible to loss. That in fact, esteeming gain as valuable, holding on to it and appreciating it and liking it and clinging to it, is really just a recipe for suffering. You're always going to be dissatisfied. You're always going to be vulnerable. You're always going to be crushed when you lose the things that are most dear to you. I might argue that it's valuable to have money, for example, so you can buy the things you need. I wouldn't say that really makes it valuable. Really, it makes it useful in a practical sense. It's different from something being valuable. Money isn't valuable. Money is something that, it's like a debt, really. Without it, you have to cough it up just in order to survive. You're not really gaining money, you're just working so that people don't starve you, working just so that you can feed your body and protect your life. We're actually just slaves in that sense, being forced to work. We couldn't stop working. It's not really valuable. It's a trap that we're stuck in. Status I think is less common and less of a big deal in my society, in this society anyway. Maybe that's not true. I mean, of course, for many people it is important. But we don't have a ranked society, a caste system like in India. Still, there's always a sense of being somebody, making your mark in the world. You don't just want to be some nobody flipping burgers. You want to be a manager or a boss or someone that your parents will be proud of. Someone who has some kind of power, some kind of influence, some kind of worth, value. And of course status is a fickle thing. You can be esteemed one day and vilified the next, or unknown the next. You can be high class, low class. There's always going to be the threat. When you get a raise or a promotion, there's always going to be the threat of someone else wanting to take your position, the threat of of losing it by not performing up to snuff. And praise comes with blame. We love to be praised. Well, in place of praise there will always be blame. They're paired with each other. Nati loke anindita. There is no one in this world who is not blamed at some point. They don't talk bad about. Right? You're never going to have everyone speak well about you, and it's devastating if you have a strong sense of self-esteem, or if you place importance on what people think of you. I mean, this is really the silly thing, is our concern for what other people think of you. Here's the secret: in an ultimate sense, it means nothing what other people think of you. It really doesn't. Again, you might say, practically speaking, of course it makes a difference. If everyone hates you, well, practically or conventionally, that's a problem. But ultimately it's not. Ultimately that's not the issue. That's not what leads to suffering. Leads to suffering is your own reaction to your experience, your own estimation. If everyone hates you but you're at peace with yourself, then you're far happier and far better off than someone who everyone loves and is always afraid of censure, vulnerable to censure. When you get 100 upvotes on your video and then you fret about the one downvote. Or when everyone says nice things about you. This is a quality of the internet. People say nice things and then one person says something nasty and it just devastates you. We're vulnerable. This is what placing value in these things that are frail, fragile, are uncertain, unstable, unpredictable. And happiness, of course, pleasure. Even if pleasure is to be understood as valuable, it's hard to say one way or the other. What does it mean to say it's valuable? We like it. We'd have to say, does it improve your quality of life? Or we might even say, does pleasure make you happy? We want to say, well, of course it makes me happy. Unfortunately, this is what we see in meditation, that in fact it doesn't. As you watch, you see all it does is make you cling to it, make you desire it more and stress and feel disappointed when you don't get it, frustrated. It's very easy to live and to be content when you always get what you want, right? As long as the good things come to us. You can never really measure the level of your happiness, of your mental development. Why meditation is so uncomfortable? It's because it takes this away from you. We live our lives thinking, I'm a pretty content individual, maybe not everything's perfect. But mostly that's just because we're generally getting what we want. We generally have enough gain to get by. And people aren't saying nasty things about us. We have a position in society, and we can find pleasure. We have entertainment, ways of enjoying ourselves. So we think, I'm a pretty content individual, until you come to meditate and you don't have any of that, and it's stress to the max. Suddenly you have to deal with your mind, and only your mind, without all these things that you hold valuable, and realize that all it's done is leave you discontent. So the Buddha taught a series of things that are truly valuable. Sattimani bhikkhave dhanani. Monks, there are these 7 treasures, 7 valuable things. These are called the 7 noble treasures. So if we compare all these worldly things with the Dhamma, we can start to get a sense of what it means for something to be truly valuable. And we can get a sense of how limited the value is of worldly things. The first one is saddha, which means confidence or conviction. Because these are things that can't be taken away from you. Someone can't take your conviction away from you. If they can, then it's a problem with your conviction. It means you don't have enough of it. Money's not like that. Wealth is not like that. Pleasure is not like that. It's not the more you get, the harder it is to take away. Conviction, the more you have, the harder it is to take away. The more you develop conviction through seeing the truth, through practicing the Buddha's teaching and coming to understand the way things are. Once you practice meditation and you see form is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, and so on, according to the discourses we talked about the past few sessions. The more you see that, the more conviction you gain. You don't waver. You don't have any doubt about, is this valuable, is that valuable, is this right, is that right? A real treasure and conviction that most people don't have, because they don't have a sense of direction. We might have beliefs, but they're based on shaky foundations, and as a result, not very stable. The conviction of most people is not very strong. They're lacking in this treasure. Even very religious people have to work really hard to maintain their conviction because it's based on shaky principles. It's based on principles or beliefs that are unverifiable. So that's the first treasure. The second treasure is sila, ethics. People can't take your ethics away from you. The more ethically set you are, the harder it is to take it away. This is another treasure that is very hard to take away from someone who has it. It's easy for those who don't really have it. Even many Buddhists, if they say, yes, I keep the 5 precepts, but if they're being attacked by a vicious beast like a mosquito, they'll be quick to change their tune in order to save their blood. A person who truly has ethics, that's unshakable. They have no problem dying. Ethics on a noble level, it's not something that you can bargain with. It's not something that you would bargain with. It goes beyond that. The power of it is that there's not a question of breaking it to save your life. Your life is less valuable than ethics. It's a very powerful thing. Because of course our life it's not as valuable as ethics. You might say it's valuable, but it's only valuable in terms of how ethical we are. If your life is full of corruption and evil, your life is actually whatever the opposite of valuable is. It's, you accumulate debt through your life, the debt of evil, the debt of corruption, and when you die you have to pay up. The third treasure is hiri. Well, the third and the fourth are hiri and ottappa. And these go together, so they have to be kind of explained together. They're shame and fear. Those are the words we use to describe them. I mean, that it really doesn't do them justice, but that is the sort of the words the Buddha used. But the meaning isn't that you actually feel bad or so on. Shame means a disinclination to perform evil deeds, to perform those unethical deeds. Hiri is a state of mind that focuses on karma and says about bad karma, just through understanding, through experience. When you see again and again what your evil deeds do, what your impure deeds, you see what certain deeds, certain states of mind, certain inclinations, you see their results. In the meditation again and again you see this. You see where your mind leads you. You shy away from it. You think about the idea of doing this or inclining in this direction as undesirable. And there's an aversion in a sense to it. There's a recoiling from it. That's hiri, that's shame. And ottappa, fear. Ottappa is the same idea, but it's focused on results. It's the fear of the results of bad deeds. So when you think about certain acts or thoughts or words that you might do or say or think, you consider that there's the result of those deeds. What would be the outcome? What would they lead to? And you recoil from that, meaning wisely you understand that that's not a good result. Doing that, saying that, thinking that, killing, stealing, lying, cheating. By careful observation and thorough understanding, you come to see how negative the result of these things is. The results are. Hiri and ottappa. This is not something that someone can take away from you. You have these things, if you understand these things, and you have no concern for people forcing you to do evil deeds or coercing you, because there's nothing more valuable than that. You start to see what's truly valuable. They might give you money, bribe you money to do this, to do that. There was a story of a leper, I think, So anyway, a very poor man, and Mara, or one of the gods, came to test him and said, "Here, I'll make you a rich man if you just renounce the Buddha. Say, I don't take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha." And he was a Sotapanna, this guy. And he says, "Who are you? Get away from me. I'm not poor. I don't need money. I'm rich." We have to ask ourselves, what is truly valuable? These are things that are truly valuable that no one can take away from you. Number 5 is sutta. Sutta means learning. Learning is something can be taken away from you. You can forget it. Nonetheless, it's very valuable. But it can't be taken away by ordinary means. You can't rip it from someone's mind, not without giving them a lobotomy. But it's really, for most of us, it's there to stay. I mean, it's a very valuable thing to have knowledge. Of course, there's knowledge in a worldly sense, and we know that that's valuable. But here we're really talking about learning spiritual teachings, learning those teachings that are going to help us on our path to become free from suffering. That's of great value. Even just memorizing the Buddha's teachings or learning it thoroughly. It's like having a guide on the path. It's invaluable. It's valuable. It's something that is priceless. Something that you can't do without. It's necessary, and you would say, without it you're wandering lost. So learning in Buddhism is, we talk a lot about how it's not enough and maybe presented as something that's inferior to practice, which of course it is. Nonetheless, great learning is a great treasure. Something means you don't have to go and look it up in a book. When you know something, when you've learned something, you can carry it with you. The 6th treasure is jaga, which means generosity or giving. Giving is maybe the best. Why? Because giving also means giving up. What's the word? Anyway, giving the ability to give things away. So charity is an important part of this, being generous to others, right? This is something people can't take away from you. They can take away all, you can hoard up all your treasure and it can be taken away in a heartbeat. But charity is something people can't take away. Unless you have nothing, I suppose. But you see, it's really impossible to have nothing, especially if you have all these noble treasures. They might take away your belongings, your material possessions, but you can still be very generous and kind, helping others, teaching others, advising others, relating the things you've learned. Generosity is a great gift. The ability to give is a great wealth. So many good things come from it. Friendship, esteem, really all the good things in life, the worldly, material good things in life, they all come not from hoarding them or not from seeking them out, but they come from generosity, from things like generosity and kindness and sharing, giving these things up. When you give them up, people are more inclined to appreciate you, be grateful for you. And the last one is panya, the wealth, the treasure of wisdom. It's important to see that this is separate from sutta. So what we mean here is not wisdom through learning or intellectual activity. Sutta means learning. Panya means wisdom in the sense of understanding. And this is what we mean when we talk about vipassana. This is what we strive for through the meditation practice, insight meditation, mindfulness meditation. As you practice, you come to understand about yourself and about the world around you, impermanence, the things that you cling to as stable, as satisfying, as valuable. You come to see that they're impermanent, and in fact not really valuable at all. They can't really make you happy. Sorry, we're having a little trouble with the audio. I don't know if that helps. It's really hard to adjust this. Anyway. Seeing things as they are. Learning to adjust your sense of what's valuable, what's useful. To see what's right and what's wrong. And to align yourself with what's right, with what's actually going to make you happy. To understand what's truly valuable. It's really what we aim for in Buddhism. Wisdom is the most valuable, something people can't take away from you, certainly. If you have true wisdom, it can never leave you. Wisdom is something that changes the core of who you are. Changes your future. Changes your destiny. Wisdom is that which really changes, really frees you from all the bad things, all the bad paths you might follow through lack of wisdom, through lack of understanding, right? If we knew something was bad for us, why would we go that way? So the only way to truly be free from suffering is to cultivate understanding of those things that cause us suffering and those things that actually truly lead to happiness. And that's a very difficult thing to do because it's easy to think that something is valuable. It's much more difficult to actually know and be sure. Through understanding, through realization. So, that's the Dhamma for tonight. I apologize if the recordings were not that good, but I'm dealing with limited, really hacking this to get a broadcast up at all, so hopefully it was at least more or less understandable. Wish you all the best. Okay, so we have a question on the site. Is the site working again? Yes. Why do people ask questions about my monastic life? Is it really all that interesting? Right. There's a bunch of questions on the site. You can go. Yes, please. Rather you guys don't stay around for the questions because they're not related to your practice. Are not related to practice at all. Okay, so when I ordained, there were 18 of us ordained, but 17 of them were just ordaining, 15 of them were just ordaining temporarily. That's the answer to that. 2 of them were kind of not sure, I think. Those were the 2 foreigners. Actually, I don't really know. I don't really know the story of all 18. I know that 15 of them were ordaining for a specific function. They were ordaining for the king's birthday. So that was that. Is it necessary to observe so-called rupa kalapas? You don't really understand them in that way. That's just a technical description. Of course, you have to study rupa, moments of rupa. But it's not anything like a microscope where you see a kala, where you see the smallest divisible. It's important to see rupa, and to see that rupa is impermanent. To see that they're discrete. Sight, when you extend your arm, there's a discrete experience that arises and ceases. Does one have to go through all the 10 insight knowledges 4 times? Technically, yes. 16. There's 16 insight knowledges. Although, how does that work? Yeah, something like that. Laying down to meditate. Heartbeat is the main thing I'm aware of. Do I note beating? Sure, yes. Note that your heart is beating. Feeling. And if eventually your mind lets go of it, then you can go back to the stomach. There's nothing, you don't have to worry about things being a distraction. Just be mindful of them. If you note that there's a syncing with your heartbeat, then say knowing, and so on. It's all just, what you're talking about is experience. It's going to take you some time to untangle it all, but that's the practice. I recently called my brother unempathic, conceited, and arrogant over a text message. Is this considered ill will? It's probably considered harsh speech. If you had anger in your mind, then it was probably wrong speech, but only an anagami is free from such things. It's important to be right. Is he unempathic, conceited, and arrogant? If he is, then it's not so bad. It would be considered unskillful. Unless you were completely devoid of anger and you really just thought this was something he needed to hear. But if you did it out of anger, not so good for you. How old does one have to be to ordain, become a Buddhist monk? 20 years old. This Tuesday is considered Theravada. No, this Tuesday is the Southeast Asian New Year, which I think actually comes from India. I think this is the plowing ceremony. I'm not quite sure. Can't remember now. Anyway, I think it's tied up with Hinduism more than Buddhism. Nothing to do with Theravada Buddhism. Is it breaking the second precept if you secretly take back something that was stolen from you? That's a good question. If you relinquish ownership of something, then it's considered stolen. No. If you relinquish ownership of something, if you relinquished ownership of it at some point, like if someone stole it from you, well, that's stealing. But then if at some point you give it up and you say, okay, it's theirs now, and then you take it back, then it's stealing. And this is really technicality. But if you never do, and then you find out who has it, or you always knew who had it, and you always thought of it, that's mine, and you take it back, it's not considered stealing, technically. Good question. I see suffering and unhappiness in my family. I'm fortunate to have found Buddhism, planning ordaining as a monk, but I feel obligated to stay and help my family. I'm sorry, I don't really have any advice. You have to make a choice for yourself. It's very hard to give people that sort of general advice. To make the decision yourself, because if you're not really 100% confident about your desire to become a monk, and your position to become a monk, it's very difficult to stay a monk. Isn't charity more than simply giving up? So you can give up something by throwing it away or leaving it behind. Charity requires you to have metta or karuna. Well, what I meant is that charity requires you to have the ability to let go of something. If you're unable to let go of it, and more important than simply charity is the ability to let go in general. Because you say, yes, you can give something out by throwing it away, but you say it as though that's an insignificant act, right? How many people can throw away something that they cling to? And so the ability to throw something away is a good sign. It's a very important thing. It's actually more important than charity. Pema Siri Hamdru went through this. I think of him whenever I talk about jaga, because they wanted to translate jaga as generosity, and he said, no, that's not what it means. And he explained that it's more than just giving; it's about giving up. And I think he's right. He's right in a sense. I mean, it's you can see it in many different ways, but giving up is more important. The ability to throw things away, you make it sound like it's something easy. It's really not. It's easy to throw away things that are not valuable to you, just like it's easy to give away things that are not valuable to you. It's very difficult to throw away or give away things that are valuable to you. So this is an important quality of mind, something that people can't take away from you, right? If you don't want anything, then no one can ever make you suffer from stealing anything from you. Anything they take from you, right? It's the greatest possession is contentment. That's what that means. But yes, in the sutta here, it actually does just refer, but the Buddha gives, of course, the teaching is on many different levels, but on the most basic level, it just means, and the Buddha says this in the sutta, it just means giving, supporting others, giving alms, giving charity. Alright, so those are all the questions from our site, and again, I'm not answering questions elsewhere because it's just too much confusion, and well, this is easiest. And it means you have to work in order to ask a question. So, hopefully that worked out well, and try to keep tweaking this broadcast. Thank you all for coming out.